Hello guys, how are you? I'm Carlos Lopez de Lara, Crypto Carlos for the friends. And hi again, I'm very happy to see you around. Today we're going to be talking finally about the Ouroboros Chronos protocol. If you watched my previous video on the Ouroboros Genesis protocol, we leave it exactly there. We were commenting that this was the protocol that we were expecting at that point. And it has finally come out. It went out just like 12, 13, 14 days ago. It is from July 19th. And this release even took Charles out from his Twitter retirement. Just to announce this, congratulations for this photo, Charles. This is an amazing pic. And well, before I go straight to the Ouroboros Chronos document, I would like to thank all the people that commented my previous video. Thanks for your cheers up. And I'm very happy because some important people in the Cardano ecosystem came to visit my video and leave a comment or retweet it. And I'd like to thank where you are here, Nathan Kaiser from the Cardano Foundation. Thanks for your comments. We even got retweets from the official Cardano IOHK account, sorry. We got retweeted by Rick from the Cardano Effect, and I got retweeted by Sebastian from Emurgo. So I'm very happy with that. I'm hoping not to let you down with this new video about the Ouroboros Chronos. I have to be honest. When I was just expecting this paper to come out, I thought it was going to be a lot simpler, but it turned out to be a very, very complex protocol. It has a lot of additions. It builds on top of Genesis. It keeps most of the functionality from Ouroboros Genesis, but adds a lot. And let's go straight into that. And let me show you, first of all, this image just to make a comparison of the problems that Genesis was trying to solve and the problems that Chronos is now trying to solve. And actually, they managed to solve these problems in a beautiful and elegant manner. First of all, remember we have a timeline. In the Cardano blockchain, we divide time in epochs, represented by these vertical bars, and every epoch is divided into slots. Only one block is to be produced at every slot, and that is that. So, what was the problem Genesis was trying to solve? Remember that when the Ouroboros protocol considers what is called a dynamic availability, meaning that participants in the protocol come and go at free will, and there is no guarantee that everybody's going to be online at every time. So what we want for the protocol is that when we rejoin after some leave, we want to be able to synchronize always with the correct chain, with the proper chain, with the right chain. And Ouroboros Genesis dealt with this very beautiful and elegantly with a new chain selection rule. Just a little bit on this. When you are trying to synchronize to the network, perhaps you face you may face multiple chains coming to you, and you have to be able to choose the proper chain, the correct chain. So what we do in Genesis is, when we face a fork, we are always going to choose the chain that is denser in the following slots to the fork, so that it is the chain that has the more transactions, the more activity, the more dynamics on it. So this is what Ouroboros Genesis does. And it allows us to do it with having only a trusted copy of the Genesis block. And this is why it is called Ouroboros Genesis, right? And it also adds a little bit more functionality compared to Proust and the Ouroboros, let's say, classic. And with the verifiable random function, this function is used for the slot leader election process, right? So that this is a very important piece of information because we are going to use this particular BRF also in Chronos, also for the slot leader election process, but for a new functionality that comes that we are going to show in a minute. For the matter of time in Genesis, we had not a big deal with that because we assume a global clock. Remember that. In Genesis, we assume a clock, meaning that there is a central clock, a global clock that is available for every participant. So we become time aware by simply registering to this clock, right? And becoming time aware is important because we need to know at which epoch and at which slot we are at any given time. So this is Genesis. What happens with Chronos? Chronos removes this global clock assumption and builds a decentralized clock, a joint clock. The key thing here is that when we remove this global clock, we need some functionality to replace it. And we are going to be using this same verifiable random function to create the exact same kind of lottery, but to produce together all the participants on the protocol something that is called synchronization beacons. And we will have also some a new joining procedure when we are offline for some time and we want to rejoin. We don't only need to choose the correct chain, but also we need to know the time the time of the system, right? So this is beautifully solved with this protocol. And finally, we have also a functionality, a procedure that is a synchronization procedure that will allow all already online and active participants and alert participants to keep synchronized while running the protocol, meaning that it's not just a single point of synchronization, but we do it frequently. And let's go right into some diagrams I built for you guys. As with the previous Genesis video, I built this kind of a blueprint. So again, recall we have our timeline. Time is divided in epochs. We have slots. One block is to be produced at every slot, at most. There can be some empty slots. And for now, we have some color coding for these slots. The red one is the Genesis block, is the first block that ever existed. And the very last slot of every epoch is very important, not only because it is from the last slot of 2 epochs ago, assuming we are here, 2 epochs ago, it would be here. This is the slot from where we take the stake distribution for the slot leader process. Remember that. It will have also a new purpose now in Ouroboros Chronos, and we will be talking about it in a minute. And I have these slots that I have marked with the green color, and it is the first 6th part of the slots of every epoch. These are very important slots, and we are going to see in a minute why. So let's start. Whenever a party wants to run in the protocol, wants to participate in the protocol, as in Genesis, we need to register to some functionalities. These functionalities are, for example, the global random oracle, which will be performing the slot leader election process. And once we are registered there, we become operational. With the network, we have to be online. We have to be synchronized with the blockchain, meaning that we will need to have a full copy of the blockchain in our node. And when we have that, we are synchronized. About the key evolving signature, we need to be sign capable. And for that, we need to be time aware. But we cannot become time aware immediately when we join the procedure because there is no longer a global clock. So it's not the protocol itself what will tell us the time at what the protocol is running now. We need to compute that time. But we do keep track of what is called gtick. This gtick variable is a local variable where we will be registering every time a new round starts. So we can be aware of when a new round starts. This is from now, at this moment we only know that. At this moment when we register, we also reset a couple of variables because we are not synchronized, we are not time aware. We use this local time variable. This P stands for party local time. This variable is set to 0, to time 0, and the protocol itself, the node itself, will be aware of its own state about this synchronization with the clock. And we will set this variable to false. So is local time in sync? By default, when we just join the protocol, this variable is set to false because we are not time aware already. Okay? So remember, from Genesis, we have this staking procedure which took into account the stake distribution from 2 epochs ago, assuming we are here now. We have this slot distribution taken from here, and we have the random oracle, which made a hash of all these 2/3 of the slots of the previous epoch, and with that hash, it ran a lottery, took that hash as a seed for this lottery, and we, as stakeholders, we had to evaluate this verifiable random function in our local node, and this variable, when the execution, the evaluation of this verifiable random function brings us a couple of outputs. One of them is a random value, and this value is compared against a certain threshold, and if that value is below that threshold, then we are elected slot leaders, and we are capable or elected to perform the slot leader duties, collecting the transactions, signing the block, and broadcasting it, for short, right? So in Chronos, we are going to use this very same verifiable random function, but in a separate domain. It's not the same evaluation, but it's a separate evaluation of this same function, and we are going to use that for producing what is called a synchronization beacon. We are going to have beacons that are going to be embedded to this, to the first 6 of the slots of every epoch. We are going to be embedding these beacons into those slots. So remember, in the staking procedure, we said that we were asking the question, am I a slot leader? But for this evaluation in particular, we are going to be asking a different question. The question is, shall I emit a beacon? And the evaluation process is exactly the same. We will receive an output from this function that it consists of a value and a proof or a certificate. In case that value is below the threshold, we are elected to emit a beacon, which will, as a stakeholder, will produce a block header and broadcast it to the network. And it will be the task of the slot leader for a particular block or a particular slot to, as normal, collect the transactions for his slot, sign them with the secret key, include the proof that comes from the verifiable random function, and as he collected the beacons that came from all other parties that were elected to emit a beacon, it will collect those beacons also and will embed them into the block he produces, then generates his secret key and broadcast the new block. So now we have these synchronization points. This is a critical part for this protocol to work because we need to keep all in sync. So now we have every n number of slots, we have these beacons that will allow us to keep all of us in sync. This is beautiful. And remember, the problem has to be with those times when we stop running the protocol for a while, when we are offline for a while, when we forgot to run the protocol, or when we are just joining the ecosystem. We need to synchronize with the blockchain. So we are going to determine to which blockchain are we going to stick, which is the chain that we are going to choose as the correct chain, and that will happen with the Genesis chain selection rule. But we also have to become time aware at this point. It is very important what this protocol does, because if we, as we know that we are out of sync when we join the protocol, we will be immediately triggered or pointed to follow this joining procedure. And this joining procedure consists of four phases, 4 stages. And number 1, at this moment, we are not time aware, but no matter that, we try to claim our stake from the finit function. And as we are not time aware, it will automatically run this protocol. And in the first phase, we will now set some local variables to some particular values. We will set the local time to 1. When we registered, it was set to 0. Now we have a new round, so it is now set to 1. We will set EP, that stands from epoch, to local time divided by R, and we are going to set SL, standing for slot, to local time, and we are going to set the fetch completed to false. Fetch completed is the procedure when we keep track of whether we finished fetching information from the network, right? So at this point we haven't, so this is set to false, and at this point we are going to be receiving the Genesis block that will allow us to run this chain selection rule from the Ouroboros Genesis protocol. So we start that part of the procedure by applying the chain selection rule from Genesis. But here is the important part of this. As we are not yet time aware, we are just about to, when running this chain selection rule, we may be taking as valid some chains that really are not. For instance, the problem is that an adversary may present us a blockchain that forks but continues way into the future, because as we are not time aware, we don't know that this is the future, right? So at this point, we are going to keep filtering chains that meet the requirements for being considered valid, but this kind of chains may be considered valid at this point. So we will keep those into our collection of possible chains for us to follow, right? At this point, we have been observing the evolution of the protocol just as a silent observer, just trying to figure out what's going on. After a certain point that, if I am correct, is something like a third of the epochs, now we can be confident of having some beacons to process, right? So now we are gonna go to phase C, and with this we are gonna be able to compute the time shift. How much we are off of synchronization according with the times that other alert participants are reporting, right? So with this time shift, we can now compute our local time, and this will put us in a very narrow window among the time stamps reported by already alert participants. It will put us very close, and we use the median and we use the median of the already synced stakeholders timestamps for us to adjust our local clock. And with that, we can now pass to phase D, which is adjusting our local clock. So with that, we become time aware, and then we are ready to participate in the protocol actively. So with that, we change the value of this variable that is synced. We now set it to true, and with that, we are ready to participate in the protocol, right? But there's another important thing here. We are now in sync, but our clocks may run not exactly and precisely at the same speed. So we need, even when we are alert, when we are fully operational in the protocol, we need to talk to each other. Hey, what time is it? And that happens at exactly the last slot of every epoch. When we reach that slot, we will run the synchronization procedure. So remember, this last slot is known as the synchronization slot. When we reach that, we are gonna run the synchronization procedure, and we are gonna use the beacons that were embedded in this synchronization interval. With that, at that point, we are gonna compute the adjustment, the shift, how much are we off, and we are gonna adjust our local clocks so that when we start a new epoch, we are all in sync again. And well, this is how this protocol works. I try to make it quick. I skipped a little bit of the functionalities. I skipped a little bit of the protocol, but I try to talk just about the key aspect of it, and I hope you have a better understanding of what Ouroboros Chronos does and how it relates to Genesis. And well, this is it. And well, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much.